Well, good morning. It's Longhaultanker, straight razor shaving with Longhaultanker. And today is Sunday, the 15th of September, 2024. And I am at the Love's Truck Stop in Sauget, Illinois on Mouset Lane. This is the one that I sometimes come to if I feel like I've got enough energy and time on my drive clock to bypass Herculeum and go the extra 40 miles to come on over here. And so that's what we've done, and here we are since yesterday about 5 o'clock, and enjoyed a nice hot shower this morning. And the water, just like Herculeum's, a little bit on the tepid side. Maybe this morning just a pinch warmer, but we'll do a straight razor shave. I've got approximately 2.5 days of whiskers on my face here, my last shave being in the last video, which occurred on Thursday evening in the driver's lounge at my company's terminal where I was Thursday evening. So let's introduce the equipment for this morning. The razor, interesting little story here. It's a Thiers-Assard 6/8 shoulderless, well, kind of shoulderless. What does that count? Thumb notch, maybe I should say. There's the shoulder, thumb notch, round point, and it's got a buffalo. I call this the buffalo razor, in contrast to the Eagle 5/8. Anyway, it's another Thiers-Assard razor that I have. It's got attractive imitation tortoise shell, translucent, which is to say they're a little bit see-through. And on the back side, it says 6/8 ICR, ACIER, C135, which is a designation for the steel. I'm not sure what the ACR means. I know the 135 stands for the steel. And so it's and if I remember right, this was honed up on a micodical A. But it's been a while since I've worked on this one. It doesn't, it comes up in regular rotation, of course. And so it's been at least 4 months, maybe 5 months since I've shaved with it. Now this is the runoff water from the jar. Oh, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The soap is Sterling Soap Company's Ramblin' Man. Got a nice scent to it. And my brush this morning is the QED Select Manchurian Silver Tip Badger. This is a 24 millimeter with a faux garnet handle on it. I like the rounded butt on the handle. It fits nicely into the palm. I'll set that back to soaking. Now let's get to moving. It's approximately 8:30 on this Sunday morning. I've got the fan on just over my head, so if you hear that buzzing sound, that's what that is. The room was quite steamy when I got out of the shower. All right, let's go. Let's get this brush loaded up, load it like I hate it, which is to say, overload the brush with soap. Soap is cheap by comparison. And if you overload the brush, you'll have plenty of soap for the shave, which is all fine and dandy. Well, I've had a couple of, well, namely one event on this load as I got started, and I may have made passing reference to it, or even more than passing reference to it, in my last video, but my trailer wasn't ready when I got in on Thursday, late afternoon. I got over there about 5 o'clock because I wanted to get set up and get all prepared for my load the next morning and get over there on time to the plant. Load time was 0800. And of course, the original trailer number assigned to me had been taken off a load because there was problems with that trailer, and they put another trailer onto it, and they didn't call me and tell me there was a change in the trailer number. When I got to the yard, I did call dispatch rather than waste my time, because these things do happen and I'm not unaware of that. And so I called dispatch to inquire if the trailer had changed, and sure enough it had. And so I went to the shop to see if the necessary preparations had been made on the new trailer. And I was informed that no, they had not been made, because the change in the trailer occurred right at or near 5 o'clock. And the day shift went home, and the only guy that could prep the trailer was on the day shift. And the day shift didn't start until, I was told, 0400 in the wash rack. And so that's why I made the decision to go ahead and shave when I did. Then Thursday evening, and set my alarm for 5 o'clock Friday morning, because I figured, well, if they come on duty at 4 o'clock and they do my trailer straight away, it'll surely be done by 5 o'clock, 5:30 by the time I roll out of the, by the time I get up, secure all the stuff in the cab of the truck from overnight sleeping and bunking. There's, some stuff I gotta move around as I prepare the cab, make my bunk and prepare the cab. And so it was about 5:20 or so, I think, when I stepped out of the cab of my truck to go inquire over at the shop. And I kid you not, as soon as I stepped out of the cab and stepped up to the front of the truck, the shop truck drove by pulling my trailer, pulling into the shop to make the preparations. And it was at about 5:30, 5:40 that morning, Friday morning. Nice truck stop coffee here. That'll get your motor running. And so, like I say, 5:40, they were done at about 7:30, which is when the time, 7:30 is when I wanted to be on site over at the plant 40 miles away, preparing for my 8 o'clock load time. They want you early, which is perfectly understandable. They want you there. And I didn't get there. By the time they shop released the trailer at about 7:45, I hot-tailed it as quick as I could over to the loading plant, and I got over there at 8:15. Technically 15 minutes late due to circumstances beyond my control. All right, let's get started with this buffalo razor, buffalo bison. And I'm going to say that that's a conical edge. It is not what you would call super keen or crisp. It is sharp. It is cutting well enough, as you might expect a conical to do. And of course, even being just a little bit late getting over to loading, I know this plant. I knew that there was going to be some joker who was going to slip in line ahead of me, and he did. And so I had to wait. In fact, and he had problems under the rack. They had started to load him. I don't know how many gallons of product they put in the trailer, but they came over to me and said, yeah, go back over and wait in the staging area. We'll come get you when we're ready for you. We've got to unload this guy. He's got to go get his trailer fixed and come back. But in the meantime, we'll load you till he gets back. And so I did, and I waited, I don't know, an hour. But I suppose it's a blessing in a way, because that got him out from underneath the rack loading, and even though it wasted an hour in my estimation, according to my plans, it wasted an hour. It did get me out of the plant by about 11:30, 11:15, and from that location to the Love's truck stop at Shreveport was 5 hours. It's about the same distance from the yard. So I got to Shreveport at approximately 5 o'clock, 5:30. Which was fine. I have nothing wrong with that at all. Even on the preloads, that's the time that I shot for to get to Shreveport was 5 o'clock. If the preload guy would get back to the yard by 12 noon. We hope for earlier, because there's no reason. If 8 o'clock load time, 2 hours, he should have been back to the yard by 11 o'clock. It all went well, but something about this load or this plant where I get loaded with this product for the portage load. I mean, you've watched me enough over the last 23 weeks to know this is load number 23 in a row. I've kind of lost count, it's either 22 or 23, but I'm going to go with 23. And getting to Shreveport by 5 o'clock sets me up well enough for the next day, which set my clock for 5 o'clock. I was rolling by 10 minutes after 6. I have it in mind right now that I'm going to rework this edge on my conical A when I get home. And the reason I say that is because it's cutting okay. In the past, I would have been satisfied with this. But I did that conical here a few weeks ago, and I forget which razor it was. The Whacker Old Sheffield. And that thing became like a laser. And so I know it can do better. See, that's the thing about experience, is that you never know until you try something a little bit different. What I did differently on the old Sheffield, frankly, is that I used a little more pressure and then backed off. Bring up a slurry, use a little more pressure, dilute the slurry, use less and less pressure to where you're, for me, dilute it to down to nothing, running water. And for me, that's a process that I know works on my caudicle A. And so I'm very satisfied with that process and that stone. And just a little side note here. I know there are lots of guys out there, and some I watch regularly. My friend Eric, the Cajun Blade, and others, they just love to experiment with different kinds of stones. And that's one of the beauties of this hobby, is that there are all kinds of options for one to focus on. For me, I'm less interested in experimenting on different kinds of stones. It's not because I don't have an interest so much as it is, I just don't have the time. And what's it been, 2-3 weeks or so since I worked on that old Sheffield whacker, 2-3 weeks on the caudicle. And I haven't touched a stone or a razor honing since then. I've come home from these loads, I'm dead beat tired. And I might add a little aggravated because of some of the changes that have recently taken place, and I'm not happy about that. And that only adds to my fatigue. And so, when I get home, and by doing the preload thing, what I mean is by them taking away the preload driver and me having to go load the load, I want to spend 2 nights in my own bed, which means I've got to get home Tuesday night. I can no longer get home on Wednesday morning like I was doing with a preload driver, because they would go load it on Friday. I would come to the yard about 10 o'clock on Friday, but now I've got to be over there to get loaded by 8 o'clock, which means I come down to the yard the night before on that Thursday night, make sure everything's done and ready, which it either is or it ain't. So for me to get home or spend 2 nights in my own bed, I've got to get home Tuesday night, which means delivery on Monday morning. I've got to hot tail it, and I'm experimenting with a couple of different routes to see which will get me home fastest. Back to the yard on Tuesday night, so I can Tuesday afternoon by 5 o'clock. I hit Houston rush hour traffic on the way home, but at least I'm home. But it gives me less time at home. But I do get Tuesday night in my own bed, and I get to spend all day Wednesday with my wife and Wednesday night in my own bed. And so that's night number 2. And I get to spend the greater part of the day of Thursday with my wife at home. And then go down to the truck on Thursday night and make all my preparations for Friday morning. And so as I say, I've got to change I can no longer come down Interstate 55 out of St. Louis because it takes a rather wide swath to the southeast and before it curves back around to the southwest. And so US 67 from Little Rock to St. Louis is pretty much a straight shot, but there's about a 40 to 50 mile stretch of that's 2-lane highway. And getting behind slow traffic on a 2-lane highway is miserable. I did have a little bit of rain on the way up, but nothing much to speak of or to hinder my progress. So I've mentioned all of that in the context of experimenting with hones. I just don't have the time. And I have my base collection. You know, I've got the stones that I have. I like them. They all perform exceptionally for me. The foundation of my collection and the base of all that I do is my Shapton Glass series of stones. I've got the 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 30K glass stones, and they're just fabulous. You cannot go wrong, in my opinion, making the Shapton Glass set the foundation of your collection. Bevel setting all the way up, and they're fast. And I determined quite some time ago, as I considered before I ever bought anything, natural, that is. I considered just exactly what kind of role they were going to play in my honing progression and setup. And I determined a long time ago that any natural stones I got would play a finishing role only. And so consequently, I'm not so much interested in one stone honing. And it's just a personal decision born out of necessity, namely time. I want to hone my razors. I want them to be sharp. I do want the thrill and excitement of trying different stones and feel their edge on my face. Yes, obviously, a conical is different than a 30K synthetic or an Arkansas. And I bought the different Arkansas, the true hard, the hard black, and the translucent, mainly because I wanted, that was going to be, the Arkansas were going to be the kind of my first choice of a natural stone. But I went with all three of the Arkansas stones, true hard, hard black, translucent, because the more I got into the Arkansas stones, the more, well, my hard black is better than your translucent nonsense. And then I started reading about the true hard, and I said, okay, I'm going to buy a true hard. After I bought the hard black, then I bought the true hard, and later I bought the translucent. And then I also, around that same time, visited Dan's Whetstone in person. And spoke to Steve Kirschman and the founder, Dan Kirschman. And their opinion was that for straight razors, that there's essentially no difference between the three. And so I had already bought the true hard by then. Before, that is to say, before I visited with them. And I was getting good results with it. And I forget where exactly I bought the my Conical A in my progression of purchases. but I bought it from the gentleman up in Massachusetts at the Perfect Edge. His name is escaping me right now. That bothers me. And it happens more and more the older I get. Can't recall something. Uh-oh, cut back on the statin drugs. They're good for your cholesterol, except they destroy your cholesterol in the brain. A doctor, I can't say that, invented disease. A pharmaceutical invented. And then I started reading about, I also have a Belgian blue whetstone that I bought from this fellow in Massachusetts at the Perfect Edge, but I hardly ever use it. I'd like to spend more time with it, but that's the very thing that I have shortage of is time. So it just sits there. And so the last stone I purchased, I think is the last stone, but this has been a good while. So all of these have been bought. I say the last stone, the less kind of stone, because I think the last stone I bought was the Norton Translucent, Arkansas. But the last one that I purchased that was different in kind was the Zulu Gray. And it was relatively inexpensive. And I said, sure, let's try it. And I've not been disappointed with the edges that I get off of that. But I've got all of my razors fairly well honed up. All they need from time to time is a refresh. Hardly ever go back to the 1K or the 2K, sometimes the 4K in my refreshing. I have a general philosophy that is, on a refresh, you start higher. 8K, let's say 8K. You start at the 8K, and if necessary, work backward to the 4K if it needs more than that, but usually they don't. Sometimes I'll get a new razor, like the Boker Count Engelbert or the Boker 14er that I recently purchased. And I'll take it back to the 4K. And one of those, I think it was the 14er, I used the Norton 4K, 8K combination stone. And then finished it off on the True Heart because I wanted to have a razor that I could remember, one of my standout razors that I could say, yes, that was honed, finished on the True Heart, and it just snapped perfect. But as you can tell, as I've been talking, my single greatest commodity that I require is time. And I don't have it. And so I have to have things that work well for the allotment of time that's given to it. And so when something doesn't work, I will set it aside until I have time. And I've got two cauticles my cauticle B and my cauticle M, that largely I've just set aside for the time being because I don't have time to fool around with them. Because I'm either spending time with my wife or I'm resting, just going numb, because sometimes I've just been so tired. When I get home, in order to get home by Tuesday night after delivering Monday morning at 7 o'clock, I've got to haul ass and have 2 10.5-hour days to drive 610 miles each day to get home by Tuesday evening, back to the yard by 5 o'clock. So I can get home for Tuesday evening. And that's exhausting. That feels good. And it feels nice and comfortable. And so I'm correct in my assumption that it is my cauticle edge. But having said all of that, it's still very interesting to watch people like Eric, Greg Gallant, Martin Shade Test as they experiment with different stones. I don't watch a lot of honing videos because it makes me want to buy more stones, and I don't have the time for it. And I'm very, very satisfied with my own process and procedure and stones. But I have the greatest respect for those that I've mentioned, but let me go through the list and say thank you for watching. I know we're 45 minutes into this thing, and we've got a nice little group that fun to watch, fun to banter with, fun to comment on each other's videos. And so Bill M had a new video last night, excellent video. And then we give a shout out to Lukey3262, also known as Matt, and then Martin Shave Test and Jock at Dapper Shaves, followed by Sean Staplefeld and Eric at the Cajun Blade, and Greg Gallant starting to do shave videos that are just terrific. And the new young man that we've watched here a couple of times, he's got a couple of videos out, and that's Sean G. Also from across the pond, we'd like to make mention of Maddie Lindholm and Mark at Friendship Shaving. And I know I'm missing somebody, and I apologize. I've jokingly said in the past that we ought to do us a meetup and have us a regular convention and go to South Africa and have Jock put us all up. Just kidding. Kinda, not really. Now, I don't know if it's because of the water or if I put extra soap on, more soap than usual. I don't believe I did, but this soap is, maybe it's the brush, maybe just the Badger versus the Boar from the last video, but the soap is much thicker and luxurious than it was with the Boar. But they do say that Boar brushes are soap hogs, and maybe I didn't put enough soap on that last shave, on that Boar bristle. So that's kind of my honing philosophy, the base of all I do. I don't do hardly any honing videos. I'm just not interested in maybe I talked myself into this years ago when so many were sniping at each other, but the drive-by assassins don't interest me at all. So there you go. You can see right there that swipe of soap. My thumb dug into that. And if I didn't wipe my thumb off, that soap would have inevitably ended up around the pin and the scales. that little bit right there, you may have seen it, where the razor kind of halted and I kind of wiggled it a little bit. That's where the old man whiskers come into play. Those stiff, wiry whiskers. And you young guys, you're going to find out that those nice little fine frog hairs you got as a young man are going to start turning into wire. I'm not too worried about those little weepers that are around my mustache area. They will be gone before you know it.
Customer 31, your shower is ready. Please proceed to shower 3.
Well, when I get done here with the shave, I'm going to go get me another cup of coffee, I think, and go to the truck and do my post-shave cleanup. And then I'm going to go fuel the truck. And another reason I like coming here sometimes and bypassing Herculeum, it's only about 6 hours and 10, 15 minutes to curbside parking in Portage, Wisconsin, where I make my delivery tomorrow, as opposed to 7 hours. But it makes for a shorter day. Oh, that's just lovely. And when the skin dries up and all the whiskers retract, all right, it'll be baby butt smooth. We'll put some alum on here in a little bit. And yes, keep the alum away from razors, off your fingers. If you want to use the alum to stretch your skin, which it does that well, rinse your hand. Get the alum off your hands before you touch your razor, again, because it will stain. I've got at least one razor, and a very expensive razor, that got an alum stain on it. Now for the head shaver, we're going to use the Fox Cutlery Soligen little 5/8 or smaller. Nice little razor, and that one was certainly honed up on the Zulu Gray. Yeah, I remember working that one pretty good on the Zulu. Well, the sink water here is holding a little warmer than I thought it would. And we'll try and get this video loaded up possibly tonight. Last week it went up on Sunday night from Portage, Wisconsin, where I have such terrible internet signal. But it got done last week. From that location before, that is to say, overnight while I was sleeping. Well, my next shave will likely be on Wednesday. I'll get home Tuesday night with two and a half days of whiskers. Then Wednesday morning I'll have 3 days of whiskers, and I'll shave, but I'll likely be off camera because my wife and I want to. What we did this last Wednesday was just we turned on the morning news and we made some coffee, and she was lounging up in the bed and I was in the master bath shaving, and we were both listening to the news, and so that will not be recorded. And so then the next shave after that will be on Thursday night from the yard in the men's lounge room at the driver's lounge. Like the last video. And that, like I said in that video, that will probably become a regular feature because I get down to the yard, I do, if my trailer's ready, I'll hook up and do all of my inspections. And then come back and do my shave, and then get to bed. Get something to eat and then get to bed. Maybe get something to eat. I mean, sometimes I have something to eat before I leave the house, which would be anywhere between 4 and 5 o'clock. But the reason I go down primarily to the truck the night before, 2 reasons. 1, I want to get a full night's sleep, and number 2, I don't want to have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Ouch. Did I get myself? A little bit right there. And so with my load time at 8 o'clock, leave the yard by 6:45 at the latest. To get loaded on Friday morning, I'll get up about 5 o'clock or so. And that's easy enough. I do that most mornings when I'm on the road. Today's Sunday, so Saturday morning, Friday morning, I was up at 5 o'clock. We're getting there. We're almost done. If you stayed with me this long, thank you. If you've watched it, especially if you watched it all the way through in one setting, if you're, watching it in multiple segments, that's fine too. I suppose I should thank you even more so because that means you had to come back to it. All right, done with the head shave. Dry the razor off, put it in its leather pouch for safety. And we'll do a thorough post-shave cleanup when I get back to the truck. The water comes right out of the sink. It's got the soap stuff in it. And so I'm not a big fanatic about everything by the book. And so we're doing the Osma alum. And the sink, so many of these sinks have these water restrictors on them and the water just trickles out, and I hate that. And so I don't, again, as a matter of necessity or circumstances, there's just the ordinary little bit of sting there. Head, there's no sting at all. No sting on the back of the neck. Do a little rinse off there. So there it is. We're done. And I appreciate you staying with me. Hit the like and subscribe if you're so moved to do so. And thank you for joining me. I will see you down the road.